Hey there, history buffs! Ever heard of a document so important, so groundbreaking, that it shaped the very foundations of democracy as we know it? No, it's not the latest iPhone release, but something even more revolutionary: the Magna Carta. Imagine a world ruled by kings with absolute power, where your rights could vanish faster than your Instagram likes. That was England in the 13th century. But then came 1215, a year that rocked the medieval world and kick-started a journey towards freedom and justice. Buckle up, because things are about to get interesting. This wasn't some peaceful agreement hashed out over tea and crumpets. It involved a power struggle, a rebellious group of barons, and a king who really needed to learn the meaning of sharing is caring. So let's rewind and explore the dramatic story of the Magna Carta, its lasting impact, and why it still matters today, over 800 years later. Get ready for some serious history, folks. Okay, picture this. It's the year 1215. The air is thick with the smell of wood smoke and the chatter of villagers. The streets are bustling with people going about their daily lives. But it's a far cry from the conveniences we know today. Forget smartphones, the internet, and even decent plumbing. Imagine a world where your daily routine involves fetching water from a well and cooking over an open fire. The concept of modern hygiene is non-existent, and life expectancy is shockingly low. Life in medieval England was tough, especially if you weren't the king. The majority of people were peasants, working the land from dawn till dusk just to scrape by. Their homes were simple thatched cottages, often shared with livestock to keep warm during the harsh winters. Imagine a feudal system where the king was top dog, the church held serious sway, and everyone else was basically stuck trying to survive. The church was a powerful institution, influencing every aspect of daily life from birth to death. The king, he was like the ultimate landlord, owning all the land and calling all the shots. His word was law, and he had the power to grant or revoke land as he pleased. This made him incredibly powerful, but also a target for those who wanted a piece of the pie. He could tax you on a whim, throw you in jail without trial. Basically, your rights were about as existent as a unicorn sighting. The justice system was rudimentary at best, and the concept of human rights was centuries away from being recognized. Not exactly a recipe for a happy population, right? The peasants were often discontented, burdened by heavy taxes and the constant threat of famine or disease. Their lives were a daily struggle for survival, with little hope for change. But even kings had to answer to someone, and in this case, it was the barons. These were the wealthy landowners who held significant power and influence. They were the king's vassals, but they also had their own interests to protect. These guys weren't your average Joes. They were wealthy landowners who provided the king with knights and soldiers in exchange for, you guessed it, more land and power. Their loyalty was crucial to the king's ability to maintain control over his kingdom. It was a system built on loyalty, obligation, and a whole lot of medieval real estate deals. The barons would swear fealty to the king, promising to support him in times of war and peace. In return, they were granted lands and titles, which they could pass on to their heirs. So, there you have it. A king used to getting his way, a group of powerful barons, and a whole bunch of people caught in the middle. The peasants were often at the mercy of their lords, who could demand labor, taxes, and even military service. Add in some political turmoil, financial instability, and a dash of royal incompetence, and you've got yourself a recipe for rebellion. The barons were not always content with the king's rule, and tensions could easily boil over into open conflict. This was a time of great uncertainty, where alliances could shift overnight and the balance of power was always in flux. Now let's talk about King John. He wasn't exactly winning any popularity contests. Imagine a ruler more interested in consolidating his power and wealth than actually, ruling responsibly. John was known for levying hefty taxes on his barons, even throwing some in jail without a fair trial. Talk about a power trip. His reign was marked by military blunders and lost territories, earning him nicknames like John's Soft Sword. Not exactly the kind of reputation you want chiseled on your royal tombstone, right? Needless to say, the barons weren't exactly thrilled with their monarch's antics. Their frustration grew with every unfair tax and arbitrary imprisonment. Something had to give. The stage was set for a showdown between a power-hungry king and a group of barons who had reached their breaking point. And guess what? They found their voice, not through tweets or Facebook posts, but through a document that would change the course of history, the Magna Carta. Section 4. Runnymede, where it all went down. This is the place where history took a dramatic turn, a field that would become the stage for one of the most significant events in English history. So the tension was thicker than a medieval feast, and the barons decided they'd had enough of King John's shenanigans. They were tired of his heavy-handed rule, his excessive taxation, and his arbitrary justice. The barons, powerful landowners and knights, felt their rights were being trampled upon. They marched on London in 1215, demanding change. This wasn't just a small protest. It was a full-scale rebellion. The barons, with their knights and followers, took control of the city, a bold move that sent a clear message to the king. Now, imagine a bunch of armed knights politely requesting a meeting with the king. That's essentially what went down. But behind the politeness was a steely determination. They were not going to back down until their demands were met. King John, probably sweating more than a peasant in a heat wave, realized he was outnumbered and outmaneuvered. His reign was in jeopardy, and he knew he had to negotiate or risk losing his throne entirely. The two sides met at a field called Runnymede, a name that would forever be etched in the annals of history. This seemingly ordinary meadow became the backdrop for extraordinary events. It wasn't exactly a romantic picnic setting. It was more like a high-stakes negotiation with the future of England hanging in the balance. And guess what? The atmosphere was charged with tension, as both sides knew the importance of the moment. The barons weren't there for a casual chat about the weather. They were there with a purpose, a mission to curb the king's power and protect their own rights. They had come prepared with a clear and uncompromising list of demands. They came prepared with a list of demands that would limit the king's power and guarantee certain basic rights. This document, known as the Magna Carta, was revolutionary. It sought to establish a new order, where even the king was subject to the law. This wasn't just about lower taxes or freedom for a few imprisoned barons. It was about establishing principles of justice and fairness that would resonate for centuries to come. The Magna Carta laid the groundwork for modern democracy and the rule of law, influencing legal systems around the world. It was a bold statement that no one, not even a king, was above the law. Section 5. The key clauses, not just for Christmas anymore. The Magna Carta, often romanticized as the cornerstone of modern democracy, has a history as rich and complex as the medieval tapestry from which it emerged. Now let's talk Turkey, or rather, Magna Carta. This document, sealed in 1215, was a revolutionary step in limiting the absolute power of the monarchy. This document wasn't just some medieval wish list. It was a bold assertion of rights and liberties that would echo through the ages. It contained specific clauses that aimed to rein in the king's power and protect individual rights. These clauses were not mere suggestions but binding agreements that the king was forced to accept. Think of it as an ancient user agreement for kings, setting out the do's and don'ts of ruling. It was a contract that even the most powerful monarch had to adhere to. One of the most famous clauses declared that no free man could be punished without a fair trial by his peers. This was a groundbreaking concept at the time. Imagine living in a world where the king could imprison you on a whim. The Magna Carta sought to put an end to such arbitrary justice. That's right, No more throwing people in dungeons just because you felt like it, King John. The barons who forced King John to sign the Magna Carta were determined to curb his tyrannical tendencies. Another clause limited the king's ability to impose taxes without the consent of the barons, a precursor to the idea of representative government. This was a significant step towards the development of parliamentary democracy. A precursor to the idea of representative government. But here's the thing. The Magna Carta wasn't some magical document that instantly transformed England into a utopia of freedom and justice. It was more like a starting point, a set of principles that would be challenged, reinterpreted, and built upon over the centuries. The Magna Carta laid the groundwork for future legal and constitutional developments. It was more like a starting point, a set of principles that would be challenged, reinterpreted, and built upon over the centuries. Its influence can be seen in documents like the United States Constitution and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The Magna Carta's legacy is a testament to the enduring struggle for human rights and the rule of law. It reminds us that the fight for justice and liberty is a continuous journey, not a destination.